Let's talk about compounded knowledge.
I would be a way better software engineer.
You can always sharpen your skills.
People are strapped for time.
But when you're making yourself better in smaller percentages, over time that compounds.
There's no mandate. There's no one with a whip. It's only yourself.
Sharpening your skills as an engineer, but this is just talking also just in general. I wanted to talk about how you can have little efforts over time to improve your level of engineering or just software development, any type of skill really. But I'm going to talk about it from a software theme.
Sure. Well, I mean, you were going on about it to me the other day about, you know, we sometimes do performance reviews, which you can talk about later within our own company, but we look at our own skills and the things that we have, even outside of software, the own things that we're working on of our own skills outside of software too, and the pockets of time that you sometimes have in the day. I mean, everyone's life is different. You know, you may have 3 kids, you may be starting a business, you may have 5 large mortgages and you don't have the time to do anything because you're working 3 full-time jobs. There's a lot of different situations where, people are strapped for time and it's hard to fit time in to do certain things. But I think sometimes people can surprise themselves with the little pockets of time that are within the day that maybe you were just on your phone doing, you know, a negligible task.
So I think the best way to start is to go 50 steps back to when I was still a learning engineer. And one of the best professors I had was in America. And he said to me, well, he was so well skilled. I thought he was a wizard. And I wrote a blog post about this a while back, but a wizard that he just did things in software that I was like, how do you know that?
Like he was a technical expert almost.
Yeah, like he would look at the whole OSI model, you know, a very particular thing in software/hardware. And he would know every level of it. He'd know every architecture. He just knew it back to forth. He could hack into a machine. He could break it. He could create it. Anything. He just was an extremely capable man. So if you're like a new engineer talking to this guy, it almost becomes intimidating because you're like, I don't know what the hell you're saying. Like I thought I knew something. Then I spoke to you and I feel like I know nothing. And I remember I went up to him, towards the end of this course and I said, how do I get as good as you? Like, how do I become you? And he said, 4 hours. And I was like, okay, 4 hours of what? And he said, 4 hours a week of, you know, any time, maybe like a little slot in the afternoon or at night time, just improving your craft. And he said, over time, that will compound and you will know a lot of things.
Like cumulatively during the week, try and do at minimum 4 hours of on whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And that sounds like a lot of time, but it really isn't that much time when you think about it. And also, I think he was saying like a maximum value. I think you could probably even hover around 2 hours or even, and just thinking about 2 hours is made up of minutes, right? And you can put those minutes wherever you want. So I can do 30 minutes today, 20 minutes tomorrow, 10 minutes on the weekend. So yeah. I remember asking this professor, I said, like maybe he's not practicing what he preaches. I was just talking in general with him. I said, what are you doing on the weekend? He said, I'm just going to hack my Audi. I said, what do you mean hack your...
Yeah, like his car, not the local shop or something.
I'm going to hack my Audi. And I said, why? And he said, because I just want to know how it works and I'm just interested and I'm just going to reverse engineer it and break it. And he's like, I hope it doesn't stop in the middle of the highway and crash. And I was like, okay. I was still a young kid at the time, so I was like, that's weird. Like, weirdly awesome.
Like you were slightly inspired too.
I was inspired, but like I just didn't think, because for more context, this guy was running a whole department and this course was just something he did on the side. And they say that when you're in leadership, you're not technical anymore. But he was the most technical. So he was like this technical lead that still was able to run teams of people. And that's kind of a different discussion of how those sorts of people still stay technical. But what I'm saying is every engineer, every person can sharpen their skills in this AI world where, you know, everyone's crying that they're going to get replaced, which is another discussion that we can talk about. But if we're talking about menial tasks getting replaced, sharpening your skills in whatever you do won't hurt.
Well, I mean, I think that topic is not that far off of what we're talking about, where, you know, the common chain is start as the worker. You're the, you know, in our world of software engineering, the code monkey, they call it. And then, you know, you move up the managerial chain, you get promoted, etc. Maybe you're managing a team of software engineers now. Maybe then you're managing the person who's managing the team of software engineers. And you then do very commonly lose your technical expertise. You know, it's not just in software, it's in nursing too, it's in mining, it's in a lot of industries where higher you go, it's more managerial tasks, more management. But I think maybe a lot of, and it's up to the workplace, the businesses, but I think it's worth employing ways that those people who are managing people can still maintain some sort of skill level. I mean, you can do it in your own personal time, which I think is what you're also talking about, you know, outside the work hours.
Oh, but hold on, I want to stop you there. I'm talking even inside work hours.
Yeah, like maybe at the start of your work day.
I remember I used to work in an office, and I'd walk around the office and I'd see multiple people reading ABC News, which in Australia, ABC News is it's like a very common news channel. Common news channel.
Especially for international news too.
That's right. So you read it and there's usually authentic pieces. Great. So I saw people having enough time to read ABC News. Now that maybe is like a little 10-minute break of theirs, or maybe they're reading it most of the day. I don't know. I wasn't sitting behind them watching them.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is there is gaps. There's gaps. There's little gaps where you can, maybe you go outside and read a portion of that software book that makes you, you know, marginally 1% better. But when you're making yourself better in smaller percentages, over time that compounds, because your knowledge then feeds into more knowledge, then helps more self-reflection. And then you just get this, people always talk about compound of money, but never compound of knowledge. Like some people mention it, but I'm just saying, like, let's talk about compound of knowledge.
Well, let me ask you then, because I mean, I'm not going to pretend I'm some perfect guy that doesn't go on, you know, YouTube and go through the shorts, or, you know, Instagram and go through the reels. There's so many short form content, TikTok, everything. And maybe the one justification I could say for myself, and maybe other people would use, is it's just a, you know, relaxing time, or it's just time off. But I find it such a weird concept, even though I read books, to be like, oh, I'm going to substitute that with a book, you know, so it's more productive. Then everyone gets obsessed with, you know, this idea of being more productive or increasing your productivity. Well, so I want to just ask, what is the point of sharpening these skills? I mean, I know it sounds obvious, but I want to know your opinion on it.
I think it's like a self-fulfillment thing too. Like there's so many factors of why making yourself more competent is such a great thing as a software engineer in any field. When you know more things, you can, I don't know, create a better podcast. You can write better software. You can test it better. Like there's just always, like, as an engineer, the thought is given unlimited time, you'll just keep trying to optimize. Right?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean,
hold on. So I was going to say, with substituting things, I'm not advocating for that at all. Like to stop watching the reels and stop scrolling ABC News. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that you can make yourself more competent if you want to, and if you have that passion to. And I think it will be extremely rewarding over time. It's something that I always try and employ, like maybe not every single week, but most times I'm reading something technical. I'm reading some release notes of some new software. I'm reading a code base for something. And it's not just enough to do it in your engineering time. Like, sure, you're going to get better on your day-to-day. You're working as an engineer 5 times a day, 7.5 to 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
And you're progressing towards something, like you're making a new app, you're making a new feature, and you learn something. That's great. But I'm talking like completely separate to that. You are looking at something maybe that's not even relevant, or it's just a thought that then makes you do some part of your software better. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but 6 months from now, you're like, oh, I read that piece and I'm going to go look at that.
You're like a rogue bee trying to find new information every now and then, take on what you can. Maybe that's not usable. I mean, sometimes the analogy in my head and what I apply for myself is, I feel as a software engineer, we're given, you know, a tool set, maybe through university, maybe, you know, when you first get into the workplace, here's like a toolbox. And it's like you're given maybe the most basic tools. Maybe let's just say there's a hammer in there. You finally work to get this hammer that can, build some stuff. But there are a lot of tools out there that can, not even necessarily make you more productive, but make that particular task just go a lot faster. And you can spend your time on another task that you weren't able to get to because usually this previous task just took you so long. And sometimes I feel stupid when I talk to maybe another software engineer and they go, oh, but are you using this particular tool? I'm like, what tool? I didn't even know it existed. Or worse, I did know it existed and I never looked into it further and realized that, man, if I just put half an hour, an hour towards it, I would be a way better software engineer. Not just for the clients that I'm doing work for, but for myself. I mean, if I'm passionate about the job that I'm in and the work that I do, why not add more tools to that toolbox? So that's the analogy that sometimes runs through my head when it's sharpening these skills.
And I think a lot of university students, they get confused with this. I remember recently a younger person asked me, what kind of courses can I do? Because they're used to a university setup where it's subject, semester finish, semester start, subject. I learn with a course.
Yeah.
Well, you learn with a book.
They don't
books
know
are
what
in
to
courses.
do outside.
What I'm saying is they were just trying to say they were just asking, what course can I do to become better? I was like, well, firstly, I wouldn't limit yourself to just a course.
Sure.
A white paper in software is very interesting.
What's a white paper?
A white paper is like they give like a description of something technical. It's like a
sort of like a report or
a big report about some seminal piece of work or a new topic. So what I was going to say was Google released a new white paper on prompt engineering.
Okay.
And that's read it.
Very relevant
it's
thing
out there
nowadays.
So, exactly. So there's white papers, there's and this is specific to software, but in general, books, videos, or finding people that you like in the industry that do software or do whatever field that you do, go follow them. Go follow their blog. Go follow what they write and what they do. Because, for example, some people just say, well, I learn on my TikTok feed or my Instagram feed.
There are things
which
you
that's
can learn
fine,
from it.
But
sure.
that's it's not filtered for quality. Like, you can start your own filters and maybe every now and again you look at the reels and whatnot, and then you find something interesting. That's great. We do reels. I'm sure someone came across some and went, that's great. But I'm saying, like, you over time also create your own curated list of people that know their stuff. So you're kind of more guaranteed to have some great advice, and then you can still do your own exploration. I mean, what I'm trying to say really is it's unlimited, and you can go and find your own resources to become what they call this 10x engineer, this engineer that does the work of 10 people, is 10 times faster, 10 everything. People say, how do I become something like that? Well, I mean, I think it's just a bit of a funny little term people say to describe someone that just knows their stuff. And if you want to know your stuff, just become more competent. Okay, I use an SQL server. I'm going to just how does one build an SQL server? Or Turing wrote a seminal piece of work on computation. Everyone always talks about Turing. He's great. They've recently made all these movies on Turing.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go read his seminal piece of work. He's got a paper. It's just sitting there waiting to be read by someone.
Well, I mean, and this is all very software related, but you got me thinking here. It's just like, you're talking about the university students, and I've got a dear friend who is like high up in the software world for teaching these university students.
Sure.
And they were talking to me about how they're surprised at the lack of skill that these software engineer students have, not just in the technical aspect, but in the soft skills aspect. They don't even know how to communicate properly. They're tasked with, communicating with a potential client to simulate a real world situation. And a part of the assignment is you had to get the client's approval for the project. And so they had to get it before a certain date. And then all of them complained to my friend because they submitted it on a Friday, or like a day before the due date. And they said, oh, they haven't replied. And he said, but they're not going to reply within 24 hours, especially on a Friday afternoon. Like you have to also understand the way to communicate with people.
They're not in university. They're on business schedule.
That's exactly
9 to
right.
5.
So the business people probably won't reply to them until the Monday, maybe the Tuesday, maybe even the Wednesday. And by that point, your assignments, you failed. You failed that criteria of the due date. And all I'm trying to say is, there's even soft skills you could work on. Maybe if you don't know how to talk with people, I remember you years ago worked in retail for a bit. It wasn't a long time, but I saw it really brought you out of your shell.
Oh, I was terrified to go up to people, strangers. I thought I was interrupting their timelines.
You worked in the back, like I think it was at Rebel Sport.
At Rebel Sport. I was tagging clothes in this sports store at the back.
Yeah.
And I was really shy. I remember I'd walk into the shop and run to the back room to just start the tagging again. And then eventually one of the managers said, Sav, you're coming out and you got to sell. And I was like,
you're a salesperson.
I remember every shift I went to, my heart was beating out my chest. And I thought, oh my God, I have to speak with people. And, some people are not so friendly.
Yeah. But majority are too.
And exactly,
you realize
the majority were. It was just a fictitious little thing. So I think we're talking about just sharpening your skills. Okay, we're working in a retail store. It made me be able to say hello to people, be polite.
Handle situations where people may be a bit tough,
Yeah, of course.
Negotiate.
Someone comes into the store and starts yelling at me because their product doesn't work.
Yeah.
Well, listen, mate, I didn't make the product. I didn't go make this little Fitbit.
Yeah.
And and then you have to work out how to diffuse the situation.
You even have to deal with someone that I remember you said they stole some products because they were trying on the shoes.
Yeah, some guy, he came to try on shoes at the sports store, and I was very trusting back then. And this guy, he was trying on the shoes, and there was like the clothes section out the back, and he said, "Oh, look, my partner's just over there. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go
show her.
go show her the shoes and see if she likes them." And then I was like, "Sure, no worries." A very trusting individual.
He had his old shoes there on the floor too.
Had his old
stuff
shoes. No one's
there.
gonna leave their old shoes. And I was waiting and waiting. I'm like, this guy's not coming back. Oh, he must have forgot, or maybe he's speaking with his wife. And I went over there and he gone. And I looked. And I did a whole perimeter check. This guy's gone. And then my boss ends up looking on the CCTV and seeing this guy literally went to the clothing section, walked around, and darted out of the store.
Yeah.
And with his new shoes, he went faster. It was the top ASIC shoe.
And they tell
and
you
I was stuck with his stinky old shoes with my boss saying, "What'd you do, man?"
You have to learn how to get reprimanded by someone.
And so from that story, I guess I just learned, like, I kept an eye on a customer when they did that next. I mean, I wasn't going to go tackle someone down. Even the management at Rebel Sports said, don't chase someone. It can end badly for you. So if they're going to run, it's just a police problem at the end. But that's kind of like skills in the workplace, I guess.
Sure.
Like, you're going to always be improving skills, but taking the time aside, even just 10 minutes at the start of your shift, 10 minutes every day.
Yeah.
Is 70 minutes, right?
And I would argue, do 20 minutes. It's not even that different. And I've been doing it personally, let's just say, for relearning touch typing. It sounds embarrassing to say, but I'll say it shamefully. No one properly taught me touch typing.
I mean, I don't think it's shameful. You were raised in a school system that didn't teach basic elementary skills such as touch typing.
Well, some of my friends in their primary schools, they said they got taught touch typing. However, when I ask them about it to this day, sometimes they're like, well, I don't touch type that well, but I sort of remember some things. But I wanted to learn it properly. I was doing the hunt and find method, I think they call it, where your fingers are just jumping around.
Yeah, you're watching the keyboard, you're like, yeah, I think the S key's around here.
Well, and if you've ever played an instrument, I play the piano, maybe you play the guitar, sometimes having a particular position on that instrument makes it way easier to hit certain notes. And it's the same with a keyboard. And I was like, I need to relearn. Well, take a step back. I said to myself, I want to learn Vim correctly. Vim is just a
piece of software.
A piece of software, let's just say. And I also wanted to use a particular editor. NeoVim is something that I think you've used in the past and you loved it. And I was like, I want to use that. But I couldn't use any of them until I sharpened my skills with touch typing. So I begrudgingly dragged my hands on the floor to my keyboard and said, time to relearn. And God, it was painful. And I spent maybe a few hours on the first night or two trying to do it, maybe 1 hour. And then from there, I've just spent 20 minutes, the start of my workday, just doing it. No emails, no nothing. Maybe I've even started work 20 minutes earlier just to get that 20 minutes in. And I set a timer, a stopwatch timer, whatever you want it to be. And I was like, I will just do that. And I swear to God, it's been working. I've gotten my words per minute up to what I was previously on before. And those little increments really did compound for me.
I think I just wanted to say on the back of that, autopilot mode. Like when you go to work and you're in the same workplace and you're doing the same projects, sometimes it can start to get like, oh, this is the same thing. But when you start to get the perspective, oh, how could I make this 5-10% better? Not 100%, like, oh, how does someone do that? But I think we can all achieve these small numbers of 5-10% improvement. So for example, if you write a lot of emails, how could I be 10% friendlier or 10% more authentic in this email? Or how could I convey my message better by 10%?
Well, I
5-10%.
You know, even beyond that, you could even figure out better ways to label your emails and filter them correctly so you don't have to go through a bunch of crap emails and you're much faster at addressing the most important ones, you know?
Well, someone just said to me the other day, I got 4,000 emails that, you know, over the last year that are completely irrelevant to me because everyone gets parts of these newsletters, whether they sign up or not. It's unfortunate, but you do.
You buy online, you're a part of someone's newsletter.
But with a few filters, which most people know probably that filters exist in emails, but just don't use it properly, you could just have like 5 emails because by the time you start sorting out the rest, automatically, you know.
Well, you don't have to be a software engineer at that point to even harness that skill. No. And that's just going to fix yourself to not have 4,000 emails and feel daunted at the start of your workday every day. But I mean, if I'm going to come off the stack a bit here, because I think, you know, the idea is there's always a bit of time in the day to sharpen your skills.
Sharpen your skills, whether you're an engineer, software engineer, mechanical engineer, not even an
outside
engineer, you're
of
a
an engineer,
videographer, a filmographer, or
any type of creative. You know?
do administration. How can I organize these things 10% better? In everything, you can be better.
I think, and again, like I said at the start of this, everyone's life is different. I'm not going to pretend that, you know, I have just as much free time as you do, whoever's listening, or yourself even. However, sometimes it's interesting to look at your own screen time on your phone. And I surprise myself on how many hours or minutes I've actually spent on my phone, on those certain apps. And I think, man, what if I just spent 20 of those minutes doing what I actually wanted to do?
Which, and look, we're not trying to be, you know, these human beings that are perfect productivity. You can't waste time.
Enjoy your relaxation.
You know, what's waste of time? You know, if you enjoy that, that's your downtime.
That's right.
That's cool. That's how you unwind. Watch 1,000 reels. That's
just
cool.
Don't use it as an excuse to say you couldn't harness your skills. Because sometimes you can, if you're passionate enough to make the time for it.
Well, for example, guitar. I had a friend of mine trying to learn guitar for like 10 years. They read everything to do with guitars, but they just never practiced the guitar because at the start it kind of sucks. But for me, you know, I practiced and went through this like hard period of learning the basics. And then once I did that, then I just played for fun after that. So in my downtime, that was my downtime. So improving your skills can be a downtime thing too.
Yeah, that's right.
Reading a book that's helpful or watching those videos, maybe that will be your downtime. That is a replaceable, substitutable downtime.
Well, a lot of the time, I would say we find things enjoyable when we, you know, start to become good at them or can enjoy the process of doing them. And like you're saying, if you sort of sharpen those skills, you can enjoy that even further. So I think that's a goal of any creative or anyone doing anything that is something in your spare time or even towards your workplace.
So I think to sum it up, you can always sharpen your skills.
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
always time. There's time in the cracks of work, even during work, saying, how could I do this 10% better? And when you start self-reflecting and asking those things, I think you can realize that over time, you can really sharpen your skills and make yourself a lot better in whatever field that you're in.
Yeah, you can raise your value a lot more than you think you can. And whatever you place that value as, whether it's your own internal value, whether it's my value as a software engineer and how I can present myself to clients, that can be raised by you if you want to. There's no mandate. There's no one with a whip. It's only yourself. And I think if you're passionate enough to do it, you can find that 20 minutes in the day to maybe put some time towards it.